let's run through some hitters we haven't talked about much this season. Jazz Chisholm has homered in back-to-back games. He went 1 for 4 with his fourth home run, added 2 RBI. He's batting .245. He's got 4 homers, 5 steals. He's been serviceable against lefties, hitting .233 with 2 of his 4 home runs so far. Actually walking a lot more this season as well. Chris, anything that you've seen? I feel like this is pretty standard, what we were expecting from Jazz, around a .250 batting average with power and speed, right?
Yeah, I think it would be fair to qualify this as a disappointing start for Jazz Chisholm, just because I think you're always hoping that a guy that's that talented is going to be a difference maker, and he hasn't been so far, even if overall he's probably playing close to what a reasonable expectation would be. So I don't know. I think he's fine. I'm to a large extent, I'm sort of out on Jazz Chisholm breaking out as a massive mega superstar, just because I think he has enough holes in his profile. But he is what he is. He's a top 100-ish overall player. He's a must-start outfielder. He's good. I just don't know if he's great.
Christopher Morel blasted a clutch home run off of Edwin Diaz in the 9th inning. He went 1 for 4. That was his 4th home run. He added 2 RBI. Christopher Morel batting just .212 overall on the season so far. He's got a .659 OPS. But some pretty encouraging things under the hood. The plate discipline looks much better. The strikeout rate around 21%. Zone contact and swinging strike rate are much improved so far for Morel. Still hitting the ball hard, not as hard as he has in years past. Still 93% rostered is Christopher Morel. Scott, if I'm in a deeper league or a 5 outfielder league, basically a roto-sized lineup with a corner infielder, I might try and buy on Christopher Morel. I like some of the things under the hood right now.
Yeah, I would definitely consider Christopher Morel a buy low. I've already bought him in one league. I think we just have to remember Christopher Morel's history, which has been a history of extreme highs and lows, which is often the case for batters who strike out as much as Christopher Morel does. I mean, the fact his exit velocities are a little lower in the past when he hasn't really gotten going yet. I take that as a very encouraging sign, actually. Maybe this home run will be the start of a 3-week stretch where Christopher Morel hits 10 home runs, because that's what he's capable of doing. We've seen it each of the last 2 years. My biggest concern for Morel, going into last offseason, is would he get to play consistently enough, because he hadn't gotten to in his time with the Cubs yet. They would move him in and out, defensive concerns, and the streakiness didn't help with that. But it seems like Craig Counsell, new manager, obviously is committed to playing him. And so I think the results are going to be very favorable in the long run, if you can live with the highs and lows.
Justin Turner had himself a big game, 2 for 5 with a double dong and 3 RBI. He is batting .311 with 4 homers and a .923 OPS. Just doing what Justin Turner does. I mean, he goes outside the top 250 picks every year, and then all he does is show up and he hits well.
We got to come up with a name for this type of player, because there's always a couple, to a much lesser extent, like Carlos Santana is kind of a similar situation where, Justin Turner is obviously a lot better, but these are guys who sort of get forgotten about during draft season. That we might not have said the name Justin Turner once after he signed with the Blue Jays. And every year he's just a really, really good player. And I mentioned Carlos Santana because last year he got off to this really bad start. From June 1st on, he was like a 780 OPS with a 30 homers pace, and he's hit 5 homers in his last 4 games, 4 in his last 5, something like that.
4 in his last 5.
And so there's always these guys who we overlook in draft season for good reason. We know who they are, and it's harder to dream.
He can't keep getting away with it players.
Kind of, but it's in Justin Turner's case, I don't even know if it's that nobody thought he would be good this year. It's just that it's so easy to talk yourself into so many other guys when you don't have to start them.
My own approach with Justin Turner is he can't keep getting he's getting too old. He's been hurt often enough in his past that I just don't trust him to stay healthy. and maybe he just collapses in on himself this year. It's similar to Nelson Cruz. It's similar to David Ortiz toward the end of his career, though I was always buying in on David Ortiz. Look, eventually, it did end for Nelson Cruz.
Yes,
so
it did end for David Ortiz. We just didn't see it. I assume if David Ortiz was playing right now, he would not be a good hitter. It might not be the safest assumption.
I'm not convinced, Chris.
But like, when I look at ADP and I see like, and these are fine players who I drafted in a handful, like Carlos Correa and Jonathan India and Luis Rengifo and Lars Nootbaar and Jared Kelenic all going ahead of him. It's just like, we talk ourselves into what could be. And then every year Justin Turner just comes out and he's like, yeah, but here's what is. And I think it's a limitation in the way that we collectively think about players.
I mean, I'm not ruling out Lars Nootbaar having the breakout season that many hoped for, just because it hasn't happened yet.
He could be Justin Turner.
I haven't ruled out a 2-month injury for Justin Turner. You know, like I don't want to declare a final verdict.
Like Lars Nootbaar just had.
Well, it wasn't a 2-month injury, obviously, but yeah, I don't want to declare a final verdict until we reach the end of the season on that. But yeah, so far Turner's been plenty useful.
What is going on with these two Rays hitters, Yandy Diaz and Randy Arozarena? Diaz went 0 for 2 with a walk and a run scored. He is batting .228 with a .597 OPS. 61% ground ball rate is just killing Yandy Diaz right now. And Arozarena, he's hitting 148. He does have some power and speed so far. 3 homers, 4 steals, a .477 OPS. I mean, oh gosh, he is killing people right now. The batted ball data is out of whack. It's lots of infield fly balls, a lack of line drives for Arozarena. To a much more elite rate, Randy Arozarena is a lot like Christopher Morel, where he has just been incredibly streaky over the course of his career. He has these months where he's just really, really bad. I would be looking to buy on both right now, because I think the only way the Rays lineup is going to go is up. Once they get Josh Lowe back, once Junior Caminero gets called up, Brandon Lau returns to this lineup, I think the only way this lineup is going to go is up. So I would still be looking to buy low on both of these things.
It gets back to what I was saying yesterday. I trust everything to regress to the mean. And unless there's an underlying skill change or an underlying process change that makes him basically a different player, neither of which I'm seeing with Randy Arozarena, I trust him to regress to the mean. In this case, meaning in a positive direction. And so, yeah, I think this is a great time to buy on him. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to sitting him until we saw him get going, but I don't think you're going to be sitting him for long.
I will say 2 things. One, the Rays City Connect jerseys are incredible. If you haven't seen them, go check them out.
It's
everything about
City
them.
Connect jerseys are incredible.
The Marlins are incredible. The Rays are also the Florida teams nailed their City Connect jerseys. There's a little cat and he's like got a skateboard, and then the Stingray's got a skateboard, and the Stingray's also a bridge. It's so cool. All right. I'm much more likely to buy Randy Arozarena than Yandy Diaz. Because Randy Arozarena has a much longer track record of being an impact fantasy player. Before last season, Yandy Diaz was fine. He was a fine fantasy player, but not someone that we were ever really particularly excited about. And so it's mostly comes down to I'm more I think both will regress to a mean. I'm more confident that I know Randy Arozarena's mean is an impact fantasy player, whereas Yandy Diaz, I hope 2023 is the mean he can regress to.
That was his career season. I don't see that as the mean for Yandy Diaz. I do see a high batting average as the mean for Yandy Diaz.
But like if he regresses to 2022, really good batting average. Everything else was pretty mediocre. So I'm certainly not banging down the door trying to draft Yandy Diaz right now.